Again, I'm Angelo Lewis, Sacred Inclusion Network. We do these once a month. And for those of you that don't know, we have a private community website, which I'll post a link on at some point. You're invited to join in for conversations in community. And today it's my privilege to introduce Bobby Austin. And please, if you're not talking, put yourself on mute because his background noise is coming from somewhere, and I have no idea where it comes from. I know it's not coming from me. A little bit about Bobby. He's the president of Neighborhood Associates Corporation. He's a sociologist and an author, and he spent his career working to strengthen the social fabric of urban neighborhoods. He held the General Hal G Chair on Contemplative Leadership at the Merton Institute, and is well recognized for his work in American culture and public kinship, which is the subject of our talk, his talk. His leadership in the National Task Force on African American Men and Boys led to the 1996 report, Repairing the Breach, and launched philanthropic efforts that reached over 17,000 young Black men in the United States. At Neighborhood Associates, he leads their approach to sharing, repairing the breach strategies with allied communities. And I'm particularly, just on a personal note, very interested in what Bobby has to say because he seems to be one of these rare people that has integrated, I'll call it spiritual awareness, I don't know if he would call it that, and social justice, social activism in this very kind of fractured time that we're living in. So Bobby, welcome. The show is yours.
Well, thank you, Angelo. I am delighted to be here, and I am glad to see two people that I know. That's June and Charles. Known June for a while, and Charles for a moment or two, but it's been what an enlightening and fantastic moment. It's good to see all of you. I've heard things already that I would like to talk about, and I think I will start off by saying this. I remember so clearly when in the 1960s and 70s, since I'm one of those people, how fractured it became when everybody could give their monikers. And so, I was just sitting here thinking, even though I live in Washington, I'm from Kentucky. And, it's called the Dark and Bloody Land. And that's from the indigenous people who were there at one time, and a few still left. And my own family had claimed, I shouldn't say my family, but one or two people who claim anything. I'm from one of those families who are quite happy to be left alone. They don't go around claiming anything. I went to a wonderful meeting where I was speaking in Michigan, and sat at a table with all these very charming people. And really there was one lady, really very attractive and just bubbly, and she had the look of an Elizabeth Taylor. She was just one of those Southern women, because you could tell she was from the South. And they had us to go around just like we did today and introduce ourselves and say where we were from. And so she says, well, I am from a little place you've never heard of. And she says, I was born in Woodburn, Kentucky. Well, I of course looked up because my people, once I come from Woodburn, Kentucky, and she's quite right, there's no one there. But maybe 50 people, I guess, maybe not that many at that point. And so when it got to me, I didn't jump in. I said, well, it's interesting. I was born in Bowling Green, but I'm from ancestrally Woodburn, Kentucky. Then she looked up. Make a long story short, we were related, blood related, and at the table could figure it out. I didn't know my great-grandfather's name. I knew he was a white man, and I knew what his last name was, and that was her grandfather. And Yeah, it's that close. And there we were. My grandfather was the only boy that came out of a relationship he had with a woman who was the cook, a mulatto woman who was the cook. Her name was Amanda. And well, we finished and we hugged and we talked and we're going to get together. And so I got home that night and I called my dad, you would have to know, a very quiet, charming man. And I said, Dad, guess what? I'm sitting at this table with the president of, she's the president of a small college in Michigan. And we are related. And I started going down and he said, oh, okay, Bob, it's only a Southern person can do. He said, but who asked you to go around finding me relatives? So the point of that is to say, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. That if they had wanted me to know about all these relatives, which they would have told me. This was a man who just was very positive, would never say anything negative, but he was not happy that I was, as he said, going around finding him relatives. So we're sort of in that space right now where people all over are saying, well, if you're also different, I got to find something that makes me different too. Somebody said, I'm just white. Well, no, you're not just. You probably have far more connections than any of us, because when I did my little DNA thing, it came back rather interestingly. It came back, I'm not going to go through all of it, but I am African, really sort of Central Africa and Northern and European. And funnily enough, no native blood showed up except indigenous blood, except it was called other. And in that other category, I'm assuming is where they were. But the point is this: we are not always who we seem to be, and we are many times more than we think we are. And that we are a part of a huge web, a huge continuum of humanity that has so segmented itself away from itself that it cannot recognize itself. That is the issue. That is the problem we all face today. One of the most interesting things for me over the last couple of years is how hard it is to pass knowledge down to our children and our children's children, and for us to learn from history, because it becomes so distorted and becomes so, how shall I say, so almost unreal that it's hard to determine what it is we're doing most of the time. I noticed that whenever I talk about public kinship, most people will say to me, all right, well, how do you do that? How is that done? Because as Americans, that's what we all have in common here. And I don't know whether Ian is from the United States or not, but I know that most you are, but most of us come from an American background that says, first and foremost, well, how do you do it? We don't want to waste time with too much centering. Sorry, Angelo. We want to just get right to the issue. We want to just know, how do you do this? I mean, where is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And then I've done it. It's over. Muddling around with it and praying over it and all of that, it sounds mushy. And well, they don't know what they're doing. And you've heard that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to smoke and all of that. So, I was a Kellogg fellow. And I was also a leader of the program, and we did a lot of things with indigenous communities. And finally, some of the young people say, I don't want to do any more of those where you go in those huts and you have the smoke and all that. I just want to know what's going on. See, it was so across the board. It wasn't whites or blacks or Latinos all doing it. It was everybody. That's just who we were. We were Americans looking in at something else. Now, today, we don't like necessarily to call ourselves Americans because there's so many problems connected with it. The least of which we just celebrated, which was Indigenous Day and Columbus Day. All that is mixed in with myth and reality. And that's what history has done to us. And it's what history will continue to do to us unless we take time to try a way to undo what has been done. So, hence public kinship. If I were to say to you, and this may sound a little off at first, I'm going to give you a story. And then I want you to think about that story. And I think you will tell me where the public kinship lies. I was struck during the period, and this is one of those things that I would say at the beginning of this. No one should feel they have the ownership of racism, or the ownership of poverty, or the ownership of all these various isms and things that we have. This is a joint thing where we're all a part of it, and if we don't learn how to be a part of it, then we're going to lose everything that we have created, some of which is extraordinary and some of which needs to be lost. But you got to know which is which so you don't do the wrong thing, throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. This is a very good saying. I don't know who came up with that, but it makes sense. If you remember and I don't always call this young man's name because I don't actually want to, but the young man who shot and killed the individuals who were praying at Mother Bethel Church, if you remember that incident, there was something there that you may not have caught. He did join them in prayer, and he did say why he wanted to start a race war and why he shot them. But one of the most interesting things for me is that on the way to be arrested, he was asked by the policeman, and we've been talking about policemen over the last year, was he hungry? And did he want a sandwich? And he said yes. And so they, in fact, got him a sandwich. They took care of his personal needs there. And he, as one would do for a kindred spirit, one who is kin to you, one who is related to you. Now, juxtapose that with what happened in Minneapolis, and the young man, Mr. Floyd, somebody's got there you are, who was killed. If you think about that, the mercy, the humanity that was shown, the public kinship, because those policemen were not kin to the young man in South Carolina, nor were they kin to Mr. Floyd, but they did not show him that same kind of mercy, the same kind of public relatedness and kinship. Now, those two stories give you a good feel, I think, for what public kinship is. It's not getting married. It's not the age-old Southern question, would you want your daughter to marry one? It's not any of those things. It's how do we treat our, I'll use the religious words, fellow man in civic society. How do we treat people? Do we treat them as one who is a part of my family, or do we treat them as enemies who are the outcasts, who are strangers to me, who are not my kin, who are not my family? Are we kind of like what my father said, I'm not looking for any more relatives? The issue here is, no, you're not. But what you're looking for is, how will I act with individuals who are unlike myself? Now, the nice title of this is Healing the Divide. I think that's something we've been asking ourselves for a long time. That story really is one of our keys. Can a policeman with his badge and his gun and all the things that they have, if they possess a moral mind, can they not treat all individuals as kin? If they come up against my son, could they not offer him humanity? If they come up against June's daughter, could they not offer her humanity? You see what I'm saying? That it's a simple act. And what public kinship is, and I hope you looked at some of the material, it's about self-leadership. So that's the first thing. If you want to have some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just how do I lead myself in doing good action? That's all. It's not about leading someone else. I never want to see another person tell me, oh, I want to be a leader because I want to lead us. No, don't lead us anywhere. What you need to do is lead yourself to read, to understand, to speak, to talk. I don't want to get too political, and I won't, but I think that has been one of the big issues we are faced with politically. The idea that I am going to lead these people to something. Never I am going to consider with my countrymen how we do something together, how we make things happen together, how we reason together, my brethren, how we do these things that allow us to create a kinship bond, a kinship web. So it's self-leadership. And self-leadership means that we do something very important, personal introspection. We take an inward journey. This is the period where individuals, humans are going to go back to the idea, if they, I don't want to go back, will go to the idea of doing individual journeys into the self. We have got to know the answer to 3 questions. Who am I? Who are they? And who are we? Now, those are very hard questions to answer. But those are the questions that will lead us to public kinship. Because I must know myself. I must find a way to do that. And only I can do that. I can do that with everybody's help. You can help me, but I've got to read, I've got to learn, I've got to find out who I am. I've got all those things to do. One thing I must say, once my DNA thing came back, it was obvious to me that I had to be much broader because I was far more inside of me than I could see. Does that make sense to you? That there's more inside of us than we can see. We cannot see ourselves. We need, of course, a mirror. We need another person to reflect who we are. And once we build these shields, okay, I'm a Black person. That's all I am. No, that's not all you am. It's a whole lot more, and it's just so much more you don't even want to do it. I'm just white. No, you're a whole lot more. It's just, have you come to grips with, well, what is that? What is that more that is inside? Well, it's not for me to know. It's not my business. This is a good thing about what I like about public kinship. It's all about what I will know. I don't have to go tell anybody. It's how I view my journey inward to know who I am. I always use this I love this little kind of it's a little dig where if you've read anything about the Oracle of Delphi, everybody in the ancient days would go there for answers. But according to what I have read, over the transom, the door entering the chamber, there was a saying which was, know thyself. So she had an insurance policy. The first thing she said, don't come asking me every question in the world. You got to know something about yourself first. Now, if you don't know that, then I can't help you. So that's very smart. That's very ancient and very, very smart. Know thyself, then I can possibly help you. That's basically what she said. I think that's one of the smartest things, as only probably a woman could do. I think that is such a smart way of dealing with an issue. Yes, we can repair this, but you've got to know yourself and you got to know what it is you want to repair. Now, I've only dealt with 1 of 8 of those steps, so I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to hope you will want to see some of those, but I will do some of them. But I'm at a point in my spiel where I want to talk about repairing the breach, which is not on the agenda for today, but repairing the breach is the mother or father of public kinship. Now, we did repairing the breach because we wanted to, when I say we, I was at Kellogg then, I was a program officer, and I was given this great opportunity to work on this, and I led it with Ambassador Young and many other people. And when we got finished with the study, it became apparent to us, were we going to be able to have African-American boys who were so held in the other category? Would they ever be able to be a part of American society? Well, first thing I said, well, we already are a part of American society. Let's don't put ourselves out of it. But what is American society without us? What is American society without the indigenous inheritance that we have? What is American society without the European experience that we have? It would not exist. It doesn't exist. It is all of those things put together. We may not like it. Maya Angelou, who everybody reveres now, she did say some interesting things. And one of them is that we can't unlive history. Okay, it is what it is. And what are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with this history that has been plunked down on us? Are we going to kill each other? Are we going to educate each other? Because I think, I don't know who it was, but one of the presidents, ancient presidents, said, what we will do is this: our ignorance will kill us, or we will learn. And so we're at the stage of, are we going to be ignorant and kill ourselves? Are we going to learn? And learning is equal. We can all learn how to do things. So the interesting thing about that, though, is this: when we got to work on this, I finally came up with this idea that, if we can if we can work with boys, work with adults, work with whites, blacks, repair this breach, and say, let's build a public kinship avenue in this, if this will work. And people agreed with me. The point was, that was 30 years ago. And some of it has worked, some of it has not. Some groups still remain, they're still working at it. It's going to take a very long time. But when we did repairing the breach, we did a model, I did a model. And what that model tells us today is why we are here today. To repair the breach means you have a chasm that you have to cross. You've got to get across. And how do you repair that? And I said, well, you got to have external support for the community or the person, that people outside, and you got to have community introspection. Communities are not, communities are not exempt from looking at themselves critically. That's the sociologist in me. You have to look at yourself critically. All of us do, no one's perfect. And see what it is you have to do to make things better for you. So no matter where you are, no matter what it is. The other side, you have to have external support. That internal work has to be done, and that external support is what helps you. So you can see most of my work is about internal work that we do on ourselves. It's about me, I. You can be selfish in this one. This is the kind of game where you can be very, very, very selfish if you wish to be, because you want to work on yourself. Now, how do you get that to public kinship, and how do you get that to an understanding of repairing the breach? Well, we called it a sacred canopy, that all men and women come together under a sacred canopy. We could call it a smoke lodge, and we tell our individual stories. What we just did this morning, we're building public kinship. on this Zoom thing, which I don't like because I can never get on, and at worst, I can never get off. But you see how you can take these things that are created for us, that we buy because we're a consumer society, and we have to have them now, else we can't talk to each other. We can talk to our brother down in South America, our sister in California, so forth and so on. And it looks just like we're all in one room. That is the sacred canopy. The sacred canopy of the day is coming together, and some people say speaking our truth. That's all right. I just say telling your story. And when you tell those stories, there are commonalities. And I could make you, I could make you do that today, right this minute. I want to just raise your hands. How many of you have ever taken a music lesson in your life? 100%. All right. Mother was very middle class. Okay, now, how many of you have ever taken a dance lesson in your life? Okay. How many of you have ever been to a church, a synagogue, or a mosque? All right. I could go on with this forever. How many of you have ever ridden a tricycle? How many of you have ever watched Howdy Doody? How many of you have ever blah, blah, blah? And it goes on and it goes on. How many of you watched American Bandstand, even though you were Black and you weren't there and you're ashamed to say, yes, I watched every afternoon when I came home because they couldn't dance, is what we used to say, because they wouldn't let us in. But we could dance, we just weren't there. So, that is building common culture, folks. You see how easy it is. Not like you have to go down to Symphony Hall, create a great symphony, but even though that has happened and continues to happen, the integration of our cultures and our expectations in our cultures create public kinship. So when I would do that, what I just did with you, we would then break off into work groups. And they weren't by race or class or what part of the country you came from. It was by taste and values and so forth and so, the things that you had in common. We have more things, and I invented this. I know everybody says it now, but I was saying this 30 years ago. We have more things in common than we do difference. And we're just so afraid to say it. It is just we're so afraid we won't be right if we say it. I was watching something. I like television. Some people will not even say they like television. I do, but I'm very careful about what I watch. I don't watch every crappy thing that comes on. So that's up to you to make that personal decision. But if you want to educate yourself, watch television. Watch the great and wonderful things that come on that will teach you about who we are. I was so amazed at how quickly we can go from loving each other to not liking one another. In the time that we had that particular president who unleashed Pandora's box, we all want to demonize him. And you can, I guess. But he had to have something to work with, folks. If he had not had something to work with, we wouldn't be in this mess. Pandora's box was opened because there was something in Pandora's box. Leadership in America, and I give them credit, had created a patina where we're going to solve this, and we're going to solve this by paving over it. Well, if any of you are psychologists, once you start paving over it, and it's going to crack, it's going to break. And then here he comes. He's not even thinking. He's just so personally involved in himself. He opens up this can of worms. Now, you can't put it back. That's not going to happen. but how will we deal with it, Angelo? That's what you're doing. How do we include in this sacred inclusion? How do we come about creating pathway under the sacred canopy to tell our stories? Because I think, and I'm from the South, I'm from Kentucky, as I said before. If you were to ask individuals who may be on the right or on the left, what is it that you want for your children? I bet you 90% of them are going to say the same thing. They're not going to say, I want them to go to jail. They're not going to say that. They're not going to say, I want them to marry some horrible person. They're not going to say that. They're going to say about 4 or 5 things that we all hold sacred and in common. Well, why can't we just work on those things? Why can't those be the jewels that we work on in common? Not that I want to change your color, not that I want to change your race, not that I want to change your background or how you talk, or what, but I just want to work on making sure that everybody has an opportunity. Now, if you are one of those who does not want to do that, that obviously means we can't work with you except to continue to talk to you. But I don't think that's 90 and 80% of the American population. Now, that's one part of this repairing the breach. I've covered mainly all 8 of them, and I would only say this. I will try to read some of them because they will help you to understand that the key to this is to be consistent with your self-knowledge. You cannot be ashamed to bring to the sacred canopy that you are an indigenous person, and here are my offerings about myself, about you. I am from Louisiana. Here are my offerings to you and from my people and what we have learned. And then we begin to massage all these learnings and this diversity, which is like a dirty word, don't ask me why. When can we do that? How can we do that? Now, I'm gonna just jump into one thing, which then we'll talk. I think is very important. What, Angelo, what you and your group are doing, you're touching upon something so critical. From the, I guess, the start of science and Christianity trying to work together, which brought us to this period we're in now. There's always been the idea from the philosophers and great thinkers and theologians that science and religion really can't work together. They're just 2 opposite things. And if you and I were to think about that for a while, we might agree. There has been so much this disruption and mean-spiritedness between the religious and the scientific that we find ourselves wanting to avoid that discussion. Well, isn't it interesting how we have been brought to this moment where we can't escape it anymore? We're going to have to discuss that very sticky, strange relationship between science and faith. And when I hear scientists talk, many of them quite willing. I don't know if you've ever read Hawkins, for one. They talk about God. They do. I don't hear evangelists talking about science so much, except to denigrate it. But scientists are moving to the point where they are in their language trying to unite the, let's say, not unitable science and religion. Why is that? Is that, and for your group, Angela, this is important, is that possible? Well, it seems to me that all of religious and sacred texts around the world say one or two of the same things. Muslims may not like Jews, Jews may not like them, Jews may not like Blacks, Blacks may not like Indians, so forth and so on, because they're indigenous and so forth and so on. But you know what it says? They all say in their own way, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat the stranger as your friend, blah, blah, blah. Go through all the texts. Go through the Quran, go on and look. I can help you because I've done it. That's why I can talk about it. They all say that. Ask the Native Americans, the indigenous who met the pilgrims at Plymouth Rock, whether that's a myth or not. What did they do? They said, come, let's have Thanksgiving. Let's get to know each other. I know. And whether or not that's good or not, I'm just telling you that people will look at strangers in different ways and create things in different ways. Maybe some of it is myth. I doubt it. It happened in some way or the other. But what is important is it's not uncommon in all cultures and types where people invite the stranger in, as opposed to pushing the stranger out. Now, I led you down that road to lead you to this. If that is the case, what I like about this present moment is how science is moving and has basically moved to help us understand one thing, that we all come from one family. We are one. Whether we want to be or not, whether we're trained or not, science is telling you what your Bible, Quran, whatever, has already told you, that we are the children of God. We are one. Now, you tell me that that is not science and religion coming together on the key issue that we're all dealing with, that we're all fighting about how different we all are and how we don't, blah, 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 and on down, all the crap that we all, those two that we revere, science and religion, sacred and maybe not sacred, but factual. The whole study of DNA is science. But what does that science come up with? One answer. What is it? One family, many branches, one family. All languages come from one tongue, many languages. So now God gave us, if you believe in God, this brain. Science evolved this brain. Looks like we could come together and with one thought in this sacred canopy, we could agree to bridge this gap. It seems to me that there's nothing left to do except to do it. Is that not a TV commercial? Nothing to do, just do it, or whatever it is. I forget now what it was, but it's something like that. All we got to do is just do it. We don't have to create another language. We do have to have more Zoom calls because we can't see each other, but all these things that we need to do. And so I am positive that we're smart enough to do that. Now I'm going to move quickly because the time is moving quickly and I want people to tell me where I'm off. But let me tell you my last piece of this public kinship thing. I sometimes don't like to use the word evolved because it brings, I'm from, as I, if you are from certain parts of the world, evolve sounds like creatures. You're saying I'm kin to apes, and I am not, people, I am not kin to an ape. And you want to say you should have the sense of an ape, then we would be in this problem. But evolve is the right word. Suppose you think of it like this: life, us, the one family, that we're all related, whether we want to be or not, because I love comedians who tell stories about, we all got that one uncle, Uncle Funky, which he'd never come, but he comes to every dinner. He drinks up all the liquor, he eats up all the food, and then he goes home. He never brings, we all got one of those. We all have that person who's in the jail. We all have that person who just won't do right. But what? What does your mother say? But you can't put him out. He's a part of the family. And you say, yeah, but his speech is, he's a part of the family. You can't put him out. This is his home. It's the one place you can go, but they can't keep you out. They have to let you in. So this is how I see it now, evolving. We have to clean up evolving so everybody can say it. Take that little Big Bang, that little seed planted millions of years, I guess, ago, that started to evolve. One of the interesting things about science I'm finding out is they now tell us that the further they go into the firmament, into the cosmos, guess what? The bigger it gets. It doesn't get smaller. It expands. The universe is constantly expanding, constantly growing, getting bigger. We don't understand it anyway, and it's still getting bigger. Suppose you look at man in the same way within that context, that within the context of the expansion and evolution of the cosmos, we are supposed to expand and evolve in the same way that the universe is expanding and evolving. That we grow, and that we grow to do what? Because sometimes you have to say, what the hell are we here? What are we doing? What is this? Why must I suffer like this? Why must my people suffer like this? What is it? And we don't know. But that evolution is taking place whether we want it to or not. Those tectonic plates beneath our feet are shifting. Those gaps are there. We're trying to find out how we bridge them, but we have to have the right mental models to do it. And that, I think, is this, that we as individuals, as we look inside, have to evolve. That evolution of who we are, that we take on all individuals in American society, that I am a part of all that is human in my community, in my society, in my nation, in my world. So we are moving toward an expansion of the human being. And if we don't look at it that way, you can't solve it out of it. We're looking at an expansion of the human being in which the many become the evolved one. The conscious universe is what is approaching us. And I believe that is where we are going, because I think science and religion can and will, if we work with them, we need to work with more scientists, can help us to understand and see how that is possible. That's how we're going to bridge this gap, is bringing those two. That seems huge, but it's not, because they've already, it's just how you frame it, how you talk about it, how you say it, how you just do it. And I do believe that that is the phase of our lives that we are in. We're moving toward faith more and more. Call it superstition if you want to, but that's very old-fashioned now. It is not superstition. Reading the stars, understanding what's in the firmament, understanding a world we do not understand, understanding, do you even understand the thing that we have most, we get up with every morning, our bodies? I find I don't understand my body, which is falling apart as we speak. I have more medicine beside my bed. I don't know what it's for. I'm taking it. Some days I'm up, some days I'm down, but I can't tell you what's going on in my body. I can't see it. So for somebody that says, if I can't see it, I can't believe it. Well, that's just dumb. You can't see inside yourself. Well, if you can, please tell me how you do it, because I would like to see what's going wrong in mine, even though I'm going to many doctors and they're practicing their art of medicine to help me. That is the key point. We're all living by faith. And in that faith, we are looking at what is it that in the end, all of our faiths have to say, and that is how we become whole and how we know the truth. Now, Nietzsche is not somebody I would throw in here, but I am. I don't particularly like him too much, but I like some things that he says. But Nietzsche says something very interesting. You know what he says, and all the ramblings he says about all kind of people and things. He says, quite frankly, God is truth. You don't have to ask anything else. That's the end of it. God is truth. The rest you're looking for are facts. That's science. You want the facts of something. We are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. That. So it's how we, in this sacred network, get people to come to the sacred canopy, tell our individual stories, see how those stories connect to the web of human life, connect with people, take a stand on issues that connect on people. Be aware of the issues, develop a moral mind, and you do that very simply by the symbols in your head that you create to deal with people that are positive. The moral mind doesn't mean you're the greatest person in the world. And that stops me and many other people from wanting to do it, because sometimes you say, but I'm not moral. I haven't done all the right things. I haven't done this. Well, that's true. But what you're trying to say is have a right stance for approaching people and ideas. And then you connect with people under that sacred canopy. That gives us a common culture and something to work for. And as I say, it is evolving. As the universe evolves, I think we are meant from the beginning to evolve in the same way the universe evolves. We are as infinite as we were created to be. We can do that, or we can stunt our growth. But we evolve by learning about each other, learning about ourselves first, and then learning about each other. And that's how we will repair the breach, and how people will be included, because you don't have to worry about that, because you will meet each individual as your brother. I mean, we were in high school, I didn't ask you how many were in the course. Probably half of you were in the course in high school. Maybe not, I don't know. But we used to sing a song, each man is my brother, each man is my friend. No man is an island. No man stands alone. It's a wonderful poem. But I remember that was one of the few songs that I just loved to sing because it was beautiful. But in the 60s, it had a resonance to us. And that was, we are not alone. And we can repair this breach. And I am done. I just want to say thank you for being so kind and listening so quietly. And now you can just tear it apart, because that's what we're here for. Angela, back to you. You are, yeah.
Bobby, I want you to just outline your 12 steps or whatever.
No, it's only 7. Don't give me any more. Okay. Well, first I have to look, because one time I did this and my staff told me, don't ever try to do it from memory again, because You got them confused. First, scan yourself and your world. And I think that's important. You go inside, look inside yourself. You suspend judgment, but not common sense. By that, when you meet people, suspend your desire to judge that person. Don't lose your common sense. If the person looks like they're getting ready to knife you, let them alone. Don't. don't be too good. Have good sense. Third, develop moral mind. That's what I was just talking about. And that is the words and expressions that we create in our heads, the symbols that we act from, because that is how human beings act. We communicate through symbols. Make sure we are trying to create in our head those good, how your mother says, have good thoughts. If you don't have anything good to say about anybody, don't say anything. So just creating the moral mind, where that mind is focused on doing what is good. Then taking a stand. That one is only because once you think it in your head, that's nice that it's there, but you need to do something. So take a stand. It can be a small stand. It doesn't have to be worldwide. Then participate. Participate in your society and your culture with all kinds of people, and hopefully they are going to be welcoming. If not, let's teach them how to be welcoming to individuals, and if we are welcoming, people will watch us precept an example, and they will be welcoming as well. That's how you connect. That's the sixth one. How you connect with people is number 6. Participating is number 5. And the last one is, once you're connecting with people, you begin to build common culture, just as I did with you. Because I did all the steps basically in the work, I didn't enunciate them. That you start off by looking at yourself, and then you move to the creation of a common culture. And when you get to that common culture, you have created the bonds for public kinship. And common culture is going to be difficult because it is not just my culture by itself, because we have been placed in history. You cannot unlive history. It's taking what is there and then working with that. How do you work with that to create the common culture of America, and then acting in that way? And I think we do that now. We're working at it hard. I think this whole, and I keep saying this because this is October, but I think the whole wave in many circles to say, no, we're going to say Indigenous Day, because it is a misnomer to say Columbus discovered America. And we know that we've learned better, and that's not, we're not going to do that. We need to honor the people who were here first and who prepared this land, and so forth and so on. Now, I don't know if it will go further than that. It should, but I'm saying that is what in our schools, our young people, and our churches and our mosques and our synagogues, we must learn to do. And it's a very simple thing to do, but it seems very hard. But at any rate, those are the 7. I will do them again. Scan yourself in your world. It's 1. Suspend judgment, but not common sense. That's 2. 3, developing the moral mind. 4, take a stand once you've done that. Number 5, participate once you've taken that stand. And number 6, connect with all people. And number 7, build the common culture based on those 6 steps. And that gives you a public relatedness. And public relatedness is doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's that. If it sounds like you've been to Sunday school, you haven't. I'm not a preacher, and I didn't mean for it to sound like I didn't want you to sound like you were in the kindergarten class and Miss Duncan's kindergarten, but not kindergarten, Sunday school. But it really is. What's that book? Everything I learned in kindergarten or whatever. That's what I need in life. Sometimes I do believe that. And we learned all the right things. We just forgot them all the time. We got being educated and graduated and married and children are rated and all them things that we have to go through. we've forgotten all the little simple things. How do you walk? I'll tell you this last story. This is true about my own baby. My first child, who is now works at Princeton Theological Seminary. She would not crawl. And so all I can take is went to the doctor, not about that, about something else. And we said, well, she's trying to walk. And I think the doctor said, okay. And so when did she start crawling? Said, oh, well, she didn't crawl. We were kind of proud that she had not been groveling around on the ground crawling. And she said, the doctor said, oh no, she must learn to crawl first. And we're like, why? No. And they actually got us somebody to teach her how to crawl, because the natural maturation of the human being requires moving through these stages. And one of those stages is crawling. So this very expensive, exclusive baby, we had to teach her how to crawl. She did learn how to crawl. She already knew how to walk, basically, but she did learn to crawl, and then she did learn to walk. But that's the phase we're in. We're learning, going back to learn how to crawl all over again so we can walk. All right, I'm done. Hope I haven't bored you to tears, but anyway, thank you.
So we have a lot more time. We've been listening to Bobby articulate his ideas and his life, and I just wonder, anybody has any kind of not just reactions, but what in your life, how can this be meaningful to you in terms of what you've heard? What reflections come to mind for you?
Can I tell about a book? Which, do you know this? 1421, the year China discovered the world. So just briefly, when you mentioned DNA and so on, what this is showing us is that almost all of us in North America have Chinese DNA.
Yeah.
So we're even literally more one than we think we are.
Absolutely. And there are several books like that dealing with this continent. One is before 1492, and then one is called something else.
Yep.
But it's the same idea that so much gets lost over time. And as human beings, we have to pass this knowledge along. Thank God we have books and so forth to do it. But even with that, we lose touch with the with what has happened to us and who we are and what makes us up. We're just so, if we could really self-aggrandize ourselves and say we are just such a huge conglomeration of humanity, and glorify that, that we're not just this. When I look at myself, this little fat man, you're a little bit more than that. And so why can't you say that? We are, just as Sue has just shown us, got a little Chinese and a little bit of everything as a part of that. Maybe that was the plan. That was the plan as to what we were to be. And as I was saying, and so the evolution is we're evolving back to the one. And I do believe that.
I had a teacher who specialized in the Middle East and the, as they're called, the people of the book, the Jews and Muslims and Christians, and how, the various conflicts and so on. And he, so often, when you talk about history, we think of, Greece or Rome in terms of European culture is what formed, our vision of the world. And the golden age, in terms of what you're talking about, in some ways for European civilization, took place in Spain around 1200, which I'm sure you know, when they all got together and they had the same university, and they translated each other's works, and they talked to each other, and they said, you know what we have in common? We all come from the same creator God. Oh, yeah. Wow. That's really cool. And they lived together and talked together and worked together for generations on the basis of We're human beings and we came from the same source.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And I want to bring Angela in because her hand is up, and then I want to talk about the two. Angela?
Angelita.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, there are a few things. Thank you very much for what you've taught us this morning and the way you're framing everything. I just really appreciate it. And I wanted to say thank you and express my gratitude, first of all. And then I wanted to contribute because you've asked for contributions, and I guess I wrote a couple of things. One of them is this word America and Americans. When I hear it, I think of the Americas, a continent, North America, Central America, where Lewis is coming from in Ecuador, and South America, where the father of my son and my grandchildren comes from. And so I then sort of wondered, because of my upbringing, I think indigenous peoples relate more to geography than to nation states. Like the United States of America is like, it's an elitist sort of definition that's based on wars and annexing parts of Mexico as late as the 1920s, et cetera. I mean, the history of nation states are problematic. So my contribution to build on what you're saying is, and I had a sort of chat conversation with Ian about checking in on, am I the only one that reacts to this word America this way? Because I think it's a commonality in people that are related to the land. And I think that's part of the indigenous people's contribution to your discussion and your teachings on building public kinship, is we all see ourselves as children of the earth. And so, you know, we'll take our shoes off and walk on the beach. And when I am, even with my shoes on, standing here in San Francisco, California, I'm connected with you all through our Mother Earth. And I think that that connection of public kinship is one that's been lost also. And it's the one that indigenous people carry primarily. I mean, when I was 5 years old, my grandfather, he told me, because you're from the original people of this land, you are the land, you are the desert. And that wasn't a metaphor. I am the land. And I think wherever you come from, and I've been to Louisiana, I lived in Houston, and I traveled to the north of your geography. And I have taken my shoes off and stood in front of a public hospital that looked more like a prison before I had to go in to rescue a relative who had had a baby there. So I feel very connected to Louisiana. And I've been in DC with my feet off at the Botanical Gardens, and I've been in many of places. I've not been in Ecuador yet, Ian. But, you know, right?
Yes, come on down.
But you know, it's like we are connected to the land, and I think that the colonial and you mentioned science. I'm considered a native scientist. I walk in the science worlds. And so the word that I would offer to you to replace or suggest to you that you consider to replace evolution is the word unfolding.
Unfolding, I like that.
And unfolding is an ongoing process based on present time, and it's the unfolding of the implicate order. And those concepts come from a quantum physicist by the name of David Bohm, B-O-H-M. And, long ago, 1970s, I read a book called Physics for Poets. It was perhaps the first book ever written for people to understand the ideas you're talking about today of expanding universe and large, the big and the very small. It's pretty incomprehensible, and there's much better books now. But this understanding of science that you're asking us to do is critical, and I agree with you. Somebody said to me, somebody I respect, Father Sauer, he said to me, God is like two fat men on a small boat who keep running into each other and laughing.
I like that.
I always remember that. It's like, and laughing,
Right.
different hormones are released in our bodies when we laugh and smile than when we think or figure out, or and I would like to offer to you that we don't need more information. We just, as you're asking us and inviting us to do, we need to collectively form meaning around what we already know.
Exactly.
So, I think that would release this, what I call the colonial deterministic mind of needing to know more. I need to know more. I need to know about your people. Tell me about your people. It's like this drive to know facts. But let's talk about meaning together. Let me ask you, when's the last time you took off your shoes and socks and stood on the earth? When's the last time you talked to a tree?
If you ask me, I have to say never. Let me tell you why. I actually sleep with socks. I cannot stand for anything to touch my feet. You see how we all have different stories?
Yeah, so then
my wife, who is a lovely and very tolerant person, why do you have to have? I cannot bear for the sheets to touch my feet. Going barefoot, not from the South, a Southern boy. I did not go barefoot. I could not stand it. So see, you're teaching me already. I got to learn. That's why learning is important, how to go barefoot. But you got to come down here and work with me in my front yard, because I can't. Let me tell you, I'm 77, and woo, that is a big one for me. Isn't that interesting? I don't know when anybody else has such an awful.
I'm young. I'm only 73, so I'll get on a plane and come over across the country. But this idea of learning to do something that you've never done is like what you're asking us to do this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, and probably why I'm on this call is because I realize I've just been talking to people who agree with me, or people that have the same language I do. Yeah. And I want to learn. What I want to learn is how to express these ancient ideas that I carry in a way that cannot be. I see people appropriating insights and then proclaiming that they know how to do something that comes from indigenous teaching. And that's just intellectual or cognitive appropriation. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about us all coming together and I guess the big thing for me is remembering that the land is our connection, and that whoever you are, wherever you are standing on the same earth that I am. And I just want to say one thing that's important to me about how we look, because I was thinking about it while you talked. I'm in the city too, so I apologize for all the city noise here. But my son is a Black Indian. My grandchildren are Black Indians. And so people look at me, and a lot of times they talk in a way that I go, wow, they wouldn't be saying that if they knew what my family looks like. And I'm sure that my Black Indian, son and grandson have the same experience of us making that judgment of how we look to know where we are in the world, And I'm the mother and grandmother of 2 6'3" big, strong Black men in the world. And I have spent my whole life, since I had children, willing them to be safe.
Oh, no.
And I don't know if you know what that means. Those of you that
Yeah.
have children in the world that are not safe
Mhm.
just because of how they look.
Yeah.
So as you know, as an Indian grandmother, I'm a little weathered because I've been willing my future to be safe. So I invite you to join me in willing us all to be safe.
Absolutely.
And I love that you're saying we're not alone, because in fact, I've always known that, but my relatives have been the trees and the stones. And so this is who I am in your circle. And this is how I heard your teachings. And this is what it made me think of, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a sacred canopy. You are not going to make me cry. I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not. But I have a tall black son as well. And I will tell you, this whole journey that I'm on started because of him. I didn't tell you that story at Kellogg. That's why we did this. That's how the book got started. That's why they gave me the money, because of something which happened to him. But I can tell you, we got past it. He's a practicing dentist, so he gives pain to people now. He's doing fine. But I have two almost 6-foot grandboys, and I mean, they are some tall kids. If you know what a Watusi warrior looks like, and with that hair, they look just like that. So when you said that, in my heart, I worry about them. And I know my daughter's doing everything that she can. But that is why we're here telling these stories, to building these connections. Those of us who are going out of here, like me, like you, we know that we're not stupid. We know we're in the last quarter of our time, but we're doing everything we can to make it better for everyone. And that's, I just want to pick up and the through line between what William was saying and what Angelica is saying. You see, the golden age of really the Moors who were in Spain, who conquered Spain, what they did was through learning, through practice, and through translation of ancient documents from the Greeks and the Romans and so forth, was to understand the common knowledge. Once we get it, no matter where it comes from, if it comes from the Utes, the Cherokee, the whoever, who came up with the idea of federation of states. If we just tell the truth about all of that, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that we know that everybody has contributed to the development of what we do call America. And that's what happened in Spain during that period. And right after they got rid of the Moors, guess what? That's when they started destroying and moving people out of Spain. And being Christian is a hard and difficult thing, and has not always gone well. And what they did was have the Inquisition and expelled the Jews, particularly from Spain. So thank you for bringing that up, because in fact, there have been many golden ages where we have been able to, and this could be our golden age that we give to the world as a gift, because everybody in the world just about is here, and I think there's a reason for that. There might be a reason as to why, because sometimes I used to say, well, why does everybody want to come to America? That's when I was thinking life is so hard here. Why does everybody want? But there is a reason. People will tell you why they want to be free. They want to come to America. They're not trying to, they really aren't trying to go to Ecuador. Maybe they should, but they're trying to get here. So we've got to figure out how we even do more. And I think that when I hear those stories, when I heard your story about your sons, I now understand you even more, love you even more, understand what's going on. I'm done. Let me stop talking. Let other people talk. Angela, you take. Take the microphone away from me.
Well, I guess in the spirit of trying to be a little bit more interactive, I'd just like to hear from everybody. I'm just going to say one thing, or actually, I'm going to say a couple of things. One is that, even in this dark days that we're on right now, I still believe in the promise of America. I really do. I love this idea that we all came from different places and we've had to weave together this common history. And it's tremendously challenged right now. There are people that would kind of like divide us, everything they can to maintain their power and control. So I just want to say I still believe. And I want to say a couple of other things, just sort of advertisements. My colleague Bill Kelly is on the call right now. And one of the things that him and I created, we're hoping to bring it back. I haven't talked about it yet. We did this thing called the Sacred Inclusion Challenge. And in our conversations before we did it, kind of the idea was that, as Angelita said, I'm used to talking to people that just agree with me all the time. So how can we break out of that framework? And, so we have a sort of a modest thing that we'll offer and we'll let you know about. And the last thing is that we have this community site. I put a link up on there. Please join us, and we'll post this recording, and all of our other explorations are on there somewhere. So anyway, I'm taking up too much time, but I'd love to hear from just everybody. Just any reflections. Can be just random things. We have about 8 minutes, so please come in and tell us a little bit about your story or just anything at all.
Could I ask a question?
Am I supposed to say no?
I don't know. I want somebody to tell me about appropriation, because I really believe in the seventh generation. I really believe in the all my relations. I really believe in Ubuntu. I really believe in Namaste. And am I appropriating that because I don't think this was my idea? It was something I learned from someone else, and I want to be a part of it. But when you say I'm appropriating, it makes me feel like I'm ripping you off somehow, and I'm just appreciating you. I don't know. How do I do this in my head to where I feel like it's okay to believe in those things without thinking I'm stealing something from somebody?
So I'm going to caution us now. We do have limited time, and this is a big subject. So, Angelita, if you want, you just want to quickly respond.
Can I hop in?
Yeah, hop in.
Everybody's asked me for permission.
Okay, well, the first thing I want to say is, Patty, I think that's a great question. And every other Thursday, we do something called Community Night. And maybe this Thursday, that's a topic that we can kind of discuss in more detail. I think that's really important. I think it's a great question. But so if anyone else wants to chime in, please.
I'm going to hold you to it, Ian.
Let's do it.
I have had to answer this question 1,000,001 times, and I will tell you what my take on it, and I maybe Angelica to also give you her take on it. African American children are very prone to say, "Oh, white people are appropriating our culture," and I will say to them, "That's probably, I guess." But suppose they didn't appropriate your culture. Suppose they, the way you say it, suppose they ignored hip hop, called it trash and garbage, and we don't want to sit. We're not going to pay for it. We're not going to pay you to wear your pants down below your butt because I don't like that. I wouldn't appropriate that. I wouldn't do that. I guess I'm appropriating white people because my belt is around my big belly and my pants are up there too. So, it's one of those things that is interpretation. And let me tell you why. Appropriation means taking something and not appreciating it, I think. It's like saying something and you don't appreciate the smoke lodge, or you don't really appreciate the thing that you're talking about. Ubuntu, for instance, is the South African "we are one." If you're just saying that and you're throwing it out in a speech, that's appropriating the language, and you're just You know, if you are living it, doing it, and you want to be a part, that's a part that then becomes a part of you. That becomes a part of who you are and the culture that you're building. And what we're trying to do is get everybody, and I won't use the word appropriate, we're trying to get everybody to imitate the good. All cultures, from the very beginning of culture, as they have grown from the borrowing from the neighbor, borrowing the good, throwing away the bad. So we didn't throw away war, we should have thrown that away. But it's borrowing the good things and not the bad things. I mean, so much now could have been learned in this country, back to that answer, had we appropriated a little bit more of Native American understanding of the land. Would not have cut down all the forests to do the things. But then the question becomes progress for the development of mankind and how that progress has been framed for us has never been about the group. It's been about almost selfish means. Progress should have been about how we all move toward common good. And that means not in the very elitist way that many of the early anthropologists, anything dealing with loving the earth is animism and primitive. So the Africans were just so primitive. They were just so backward. They just were so in love with the land. They didn't know what to do with it. It was going to waste. Do you hear what I'm saying? It was not being used appropriately. Now we're trying to reverse that and say, oh, please stop cutting it down. Don't do this. We're killing ourselves. We're all dying. Now, of course, most of our oxygen comes from the ocean, but I'm not going to fight that battle right now. I'll stick with the I'll stick with the idea of the forest and the land. But you see how just this one environmental issue, maybe that's what we all ought to take up, is how we bring everybody into the understanding of the earth, how we are a part of it. We're not separate from it. That is a part of that whole modernity. We are separate from nature. No, we are nature. We're in the midst of it. We're in the middle of it. It created us. We create it. So that's, I think, I don't know what I answered it, but what I tried to say is, but when people say appropriate, simply you don't appreciate our culture and don't use it if you don't appreciate it. And what I'm saying is we learn by aping other people's cultures and lives. And if we do it in a way that we are learning and creating, then we're doing something good. I'm done. I think I hope that did that help you at all? It's not an indictment.
Okay, thank you. You're not responsible for relieving me of my guilt. I understand that, but it helps to look at it the way you said. I mean, yes, I've appropriated it, and I'm proud to. So, because it's what I really believe. So thank you for that.
And it's who we are. In America, we are all of us, whether we have said it or not. I mean, most of our cities, many of our cities are named from indigenous groups, Mississippi. It goes on and on and on. We just don't say it. You know what I mean? We don't acknowledge it. And I think that's what Native people or indigenous resent. You should give credence to what you are using and that you know that you are using it, as opposed to, I don't know where that came from. Yes, you do know where it came from. This is where it came. This is who it is. That I think is the issue.
Okay, so we're at time. Can I just have like maybe one phrase from everybody before we say goodbye for the afternoon? Mine is public kinship.
How about thank you? This was nice.
One.
Appreciate gratitude.
Feeling
Personal
moral.
empathy.
I didn't hear either one.
Inspired.
There we go. I'm going to say fellowship.
Mm.
Yearning for connection.
Mm.
How about wisdom?
Wisdom.
I like that.
You're a wise old elder man.
Angelique, I want to hear from you.
Salita.
Good questions.
Now, that's a wise old man.
Woman.
Well, see, that's the children today. They send you these letters and they say, I am Bobby, he, her, him, I, and it. And I'm, oh my God, which one? Let's pick and choose which one we're gonna have.
Oh,
here.
you're right. You're right. Sit corrected. Sit corrected.
Right. Sit corrected.
All right, folks. You know, I hope to see you in our community site. We have a link there that's in there, and some of you are already on it, but if you aren't, thanks
Thank
for
you all
coming.
so much.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
Great.
And I
Thank
do
you.
want to reiterate on Thursday night we're gonna have a community night. So if you do sign up, you can have you'll get the Zoom link information about that. It's always like a casual conversation, and I think this week, Patty K, if you're there, we'll talk about we'll start
Yeah,
with
send that link out so we
appropriation
can all join.
versus
Yeah.
Angelo sent it before
Okay.
we can maybe it's right there. So if you look in the chat, it says please join our community site. So
All
thank
right.
everyone so much, and I hope to see everyone again soon.
All right.
Bye.
Peace out. Have a good weekend, everybody.
All righty.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Bobby.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
me.
Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you.